Greetings. My name is Troy Lamel Stovall. I humbly serve as the CEO of TEDCO, Maryland's firm focused on early stage technology investment and support. And many of you know my background is in higher ed. I come from the higher ed, and we've had a number of what I call higher ed warriors on the show. And we have another one today, but today is a really special. He's had an amazing journey, and he leads an institute here in Maryland that you may not think is connected to technology, but it is. So I am blessed and honored to have Samuel Hoi, president of the Maryland Institute for College of Arts, better known as MICA. Sammy, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Troy, for inviting me to have a chat with you.
So I want to start with your background, because you have an amazing story. So you come from Hong Kong, from a fairly well-known family there in Hong Kong, and then come here. But you're a lawyer by training who is now leading an Institute of Art. And so where I want to start with a little bit of fun, if you weren't doing this, what would Sammy be doing if you weren't president of MICA? What would you be doing?
Oh, that's a great question. I think if I were not doing something, let's see, like I'm doing now, I probably would have been either an artist, but probably an artist with a nonprofit practice on the side, because those were the two kind of motivations for me to switch from law into the current kind of higher education administration work.
Gotcha. And so what about art is what's attracted you to being this artist? What is about art that makes a passion for you?
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'll tell you a little bit about my meandering path.
Please, absolutely.
Kind of my journey towards art and also towards higher arts education. I actually did not come from a well-known family in Hong Kong, but I did come from Hong Kong, and I was born and raised in Hong Kong when it was still a special territory, a Chinese territory under British rule. And my family moved to the United States when I was 17. And there's a term of 1.5 generation that describe people like me, immigrants who arrive in the US as older children or teenagers, and who, as a result, we are cultural hybrids. Yeah. So my family settled in Honolulu. And when I finished high school there, I did the good version of a good Chinese kid version of running away. I went as far as New York City, really outside of the United States, for my kind of college degree. But I did not run away from my more traditional kind of internalized expectations of pursuing a pragmatic career. So after finishing liberal arts college at Columbia College, I actually turned my attention next door to Columbia Law School and thought that would be a practical choice for a vocational path. And it's again, as I said, it's a little like meandering story, but I hope it makes sense for you and your audience. So I went to law school, and then I encountered what I called a very productive early life crisis. I realized that I maybe had chosen the wrong law school, Columbia Law School at that time. Again, it's terrific school, but it was very commercially oriented. And I didn't feel quite fit with actually the ethos of the school at that moment. I think that school has changed now as well. And so I really had to confront myself at a very early age and ask myself some very big questions. If material and job security were not the guiding lights for me anymore, what would be the guiding lights? And what I discovered, or answers that I got for myself, really upended everything that I had embraced up to then. So the valuable lesson I learned about myself was that I could not do anything I did not love, or I would not find meaningful. And that was probably my first inkling that maybe I'm more of an artist and individual thinker than a conformist and at that kind of more business oriented perhaps. So with that realization, I knew that I had to forego the conventional sense of security and took some risk in discovering what I wanted and what I was meant to do. And so I really thought back through history of my life and discovered there's one thing that was very constant in my life, and that was art. And from elementary school, secondary school, college, even law school, I kept on taking art classes. And also I should explain that my parents' business was in Chinese kind of fine arts furniture. And so I grew up surrounded by beautiful things and always responded aesthetically, but it was a business setting. So I never considered, nor my parents consider art and design being a vocational path. But with my kind of self-examination, that completely changed. So I gave up a very attractive, well-paying law offer when I was in law school at that time, when I upon graduation, and I applied to art schools and instead, and that's how I switched to art. So how I ended up doing what I'm doing now is that I did not want to pay a tuition or accumulate it or to accumulate further student loan. So I made a deal of the school that I was going to at that time, Parsons School of Design, and asked if I work for you, would I be able to get my tuition for free? And they said yes. So I started working for them. So because of my law school training, by the time I graduated, by the time I had my portfolio to work as an artist, I gave them my notice, and they liked me enough to say, well, we would like you to stay, and offer me a very attractive opportunity to actually go to Paris to lead their tiny little campus, at that time as being the director. And of course, who would resist
in Paris, exactly.
Going to Paris and all that. So I did. And when I was there, everything came together for me, my love for art, my purpose in life, in education. And let me back up a little bit to explain a bit my family background. I was a first-generation college attendant. My parents became successful, but they became successful without the opportunity of higher education. But they believed firmly in the Confucius value of education as a mean of positive personal, professional, and social advancement. And they have instilled that value in me. So when I was able to provide service at a higher education environment in Paris at the Paris campus of Parsons School of Design, again, that different elements of a creative environment, at the purpose of education, a sense of service to the students and to society at large, really came together for me very powerfully, and that really cemented my path. And so my start of the gravitation towards art was a very curvious path. Really, I did not see it, but I think that in retrospect, because I tried to make the right decision for myself, even though I couldn't see the distance at every single step of the way, then in retrospect, everything connected for me. And then once I settled onto my current career pathway, then everything was as straightforward as possible. So since Paris, I was very lucky to have led art programs and art schools in Washington, D.C., then Los Angeles, and finally now in Baltimore.
So wonderful, beautiful story. I mean, I'm applauding because there is this. It's both it's a journey. It's a physical journey, a geographic journey. Going from Hong Kong, literally, or basically around the globe. Going from Hong Kong, making your way to North America, and eventually over to Europe. But there's some words I heard. You didn't say these words, Sam, but I see how you think about it. What I heard was introspection. I heard entrepreneurship. I heard risk taking. I heard kind of innovation. And the last one I heard was following an uncommon path, following the uncommon path. You agree with any of those words, or those phrases?
I completely agree with you. Actually, you just summarized a lot of the basic principles with which I serve. Actually, educational programs, education institutions, and also our student body. Very, very exactly those are the principles I try to share.
Yeah, I got to ask, particularly as you described your parents and your family, where you come from, when you were making that decision to go from, a traditional linear path of being a lawyer to being this non-linear, kind of how your parents, what was the conversation with your parents like?
Yeah, I'm so fortunate to have very loving and supportive parents. But parents' expectations and their beliefs that were right for them, for their histories and their times, were not necessarily something that would lend them clarity, understanding about the reality and the choices I made.
Yeah.
So I would say at the time, they were, as loving parents, they accepted my choice, but they were disappointed. But they were disappointed not because they wanted me to do what they wanted to do, but they were disappointed because they were very concerned about my livelihood. You know,
Exactly.
having gone through college and go to law school, now we're going to go and all the Seattle stereotype of the starving artist was looming large in their mind. And I'm very happy to say that because their concerns were really was rooted in love. Once they saw how passionate I was in my studies when I went to art school, and how hard I worked in order to earn my tuition in exchange. And then later on, within probably 3 to 4 years after graduation, they saw the evidence of my using the creative education I got from art school, maybe perhaps even more than the education I got from law school, to thrive and be able to provide service back to young people, to society, but also have a decent living. I think they were very relieved at that time, and ultimately became very, very proud and very feel very validated by my choice. And so I think that's actually a story that I often share with other parents who were hesitating sending their children to unconventional career paths. Art and design is just one of those paths. There are other actually areas like liberal arts, and which is highly not valued at this moment when everyone's facing such financial pressure. But I always kind of say that I think the fundamental success for someone is finding your voice and your core. And once you can feel confident and feel the power of your who you are, your essence, and your special power and your ability, if you are agile and you're open-minded and open-hearted, all of us will find our own ways to find our own roles in society, to make our own specialty, but also find our own unique way of being successful and unique way of contributing.
And that becomes your superpower. That becomes your superpower.
Exactly. Yeah, everyone has superpower, but I think we have to be, sometimes we have to just really make sure that we have a very clear mirror in front of us, and we have very clear sight to recognize what's in that mirror, and then we can actually go
forward. Love that. And look, I'm talking to somebody as a father, as a parent who just dropped off 2 kids at college. And so, and I'm sure one of them might come and have this exact conversation in a couple of years with me. So I hope I have that open-mindedness and love that you talk about with your parents.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
And so you talk about, it's funny, you mentioned kind of the role that art plays. And, I'm reminded, I'm an engineer by training, and things, I would argue to you an overemphasis on STEM. And I know more and more people now talking about STEAM, and so they're talking about science, technology, art, science and engineering and math, engineering and STEAM. And so engineering, arts and math. And I was involved in a program eons ago in North Carolina, where they had integrated art, not as a just a separate thing, but they'd integrated into history, they'd integrated into math. It was an integrative, as opposed to art sitting over here in art class, kids drawing, silly little pictures that parents hang up on the walls. Art was integrated into every single thing, because they talked about, and it was an amazing concept. They talked about art, is about innovation. It's got history attached to it. Obviously, music is math, and music is its own language. And so I guess I say it to someone who probably gets it, but I want you to talk a little bit about how we need to rethink art. And art is not this thing that sits over to the side and it's to be admired. It's an integral part of our lives.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You are really speaking not just my language, MICA's language. So I have to invite you over to see what you're doing, and also really have a conversation with our faculty leaders and our students. I think we will have such amazing conversation. Yes, I cannot agree with you more. As a matter of fact, MICA is now shaping our strategic plan 2022 to 2027. The draft is actually coming out this September. I'm going to actually send you a copy and ask you to comment on it.
Yep.
The number one goal is actually that MICA is going to be a national, international model of integrative art and design education. And that's exactly in the direction of what you're saying. What we are, our mission and our vision is that we're going to help to create a more just, more sustainable, and more joyful world with artists and designers who are valued for their imagination and leadership. And in order to do that, we have to not only tell our story, the good MICA story, but actually rewrite the story of how people understand the role of art and design in society. And exactly as you say, I guess for non-arts audience members, let me put it this way. Engineering, science oftentimes take a very linear path. You have a cause and effect, you prove your hypothesis, and then you go forward, or you have a incremental plan that's really along a straight path. What arts bring is a complementary way of thinking and looking at things that's very associative, that's actually non-linear. That's why we call it poetic. And you know, for people who are not in the arts, they'll say, oh, it's kind of epiphany, it's inspiration. It's not. It's actually a particular capacity, intelligence, and skills to draw from different sources of information, and things come together in surprising ways. And the linear cannot do without the associative, and the associative cannot do without the linear.
I love
That's why in these realms, when you say history can bring art in, math can bring art in, art actually need to bring science and math. We just hired 3 full-time faculty members who are scientists to come into the MICA curriculum. In order to do that, we have brought entrepreneurship into art and design education in a way that few art schools have done. I can talk a little bit more about that because of that. So we are really trying to say, I guess in a conventional way, how the right brain and left brain come together in a seamless way, kind of moving forward. And I think a society, especially in this mid-pandemic, endemic, and our future post-pandemic world, need that kind of synergistic way of thinking. How do we actually reinvent our world and in a good way? And we cannot do without the linear and associative coming together. That's why artists and designers need to be positioned not only in the graphic design field, in the museum field, in the theater field, but really needs to be, we should be on government agencies, which they should be actually have, and I'll give later examples of, founder CEO of, tech startups, and they should be in, company boards, and they should be in kind of, medical services. And we're doing all that at MICA actually through our programs.
Well, that's a great segue to let you talk about MICA. So a lot of folks probably have never heard of MICA. Probably folks here in Maryland might not have heard of MICA. Yeah. So, and I like you to, as you talk about MICA, you've already introduced it, but kind of the because people might be saying, why is TEDCO talking to MICA? As you just said, there's a technological piece, there's an entrepreneurial piece, there's an innovation piece. So if you talk about that as you're introducing the audience to MICA.
Yes, absolutely. So let me give you some vital statistics of MICA first. So MICA is a specialized school in visual art and design. But visual arts right now, it's a very, very wide realm. So we have programs people can easily imagine, identify, like, painting, sculpture, photography. These are well-established traditional fields. But we also have today's kind of visual media fields, such as illustration, animation, film and video, graphic design, but also maybe subjects that people don't think about actually belonging in art schools, surprisingly, like information visualization. All the data that you see, that the interactive media, that's all based on kind of big data has been interpreted. So we actually have a major in visualization, user experience. What makes iPhone so powerful and popular? It's actually how intuitive it is. So we have a degree in user experience, and we also have let's see, social design is another area that people don't think of belong in art school. And MICA is actually about 15 years ago was the first school that actually offers such a major. And now actually that major has become increasingly popular at other schools as well. And that's a program that really uses design thinking, as I mentioned before, both the linear and the associative thinking, but very importantly is to apply human design into solving the larger issues of city and society. So rather than having the power that be imagine what the service people should receive, this actually go from the other end and engage the community and the people who are receiving a service through actually a design thinking process, and then bring that solutions up to the power that be to be considered. And that's a skill set and very important. to MICA in education. So MICA's programs are really very, very wide spectrum of what we offer. And of course, as you can hear that now, and as you're astute in listening, you can see technology weaving through all these programs. Even in a traditional program like painting and sculpture, we have a program called interactive sculpture that actually has a biofabrication class that teaches students in art schools how to splice bacteria DNA, and also how to grow materials from petri dishes, so that we don't need to harm animals, we don't have to cut down trees in order to build new materials. So really thinking about medium in a very much more reimagined way. Instead of just paper, you can now use kind of biomaterials in an ethical and responsible way as actually medium to serve the future. And then I would say our demographics, that we're about 1,800 students. 80% of them are from outside of Maryland, and nationally, internationally. But we're also very focused on the Maryland population, and especially in the city of Baltimore. We are in a city of 63.7% African-American student residents, and the college population is not there yet. So we have actually a dedicated pipeline program working with public schools to create a flow of actually talented Baltimore student youth coming into kind of MICA with scholarships. So that gives you maybe a general shape of MICA. Oh, the other thing I want to mention, MICA was founded in 1826. So we are 196-year-old. In 4 years' time, we'll be celebrating our 200th anniversary. And we are also, because of that, we are the longest continuously degree offering art school in the country. So that's
congratulations,
MICA in a nutshell.
No, that's an outstanding nutshell. Just like your journey, as you were describing MICA, these things will come into my mind. You sound like you're activating art. You're bringing art to the common man, and you're making art accessible and making it meaningful beyond the way you're changing the definition of art, so that art is activated and is a fundamental part. It's not something that hangs on a wall or is a sculpture. Right. It's a fundamental part of everyone's life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think our job is to demystify art and shattering the stereotype of starving artist, and then bringing art into every single aspect, because our education, the MICA mission is to prepare diverse students for fulfilling and contributing lives in a ever-changing, diverse world, and thrive with Baltimore and make the world we imagine. So if you think about the three elements of our mission statements, it's exactly what you say. We're thinking of art as being this kind of almost universal platform. You come in, you learn how to be creative, but then you can take that creativity and laterally transfer into any fields that you want to serve in or succeed in. One of the terms I like to use is that we are actually preparing and graduating kind of wide angle, wide impact creatives that it could be as comfortable in social services, in health, in environmental justice, in entrepreneurship, as it is in, again, the conventional forums of kind of museum and galleries and graphic design studios.
Yeah. And I guess I welcome reading your strategic plan. I've been more than happy to help where we can, because part of it is, how do you get the common person, the lay person, to rethink what art is, right? Because that's what you're doing. You're making them change the definition of not just what art is, but what art can be and what art means for them individually. And I don't know if you'll agree with this analogy. In some ways, I'm an engineer, so I grew up with the space program, and people were wondering, why the heck we send all these people to the moon? Why are we spending all this money sending people to the moon? But when you start to think about all the technologies that we now use because of the space program, there was commonplace value in that. And it sounds like the same thing. You're trying to get commonplace value for what's beautiful. What we see as art, and it's visually great, or from audio point great. But you want to make it such that it's not just about that. It's about this is a part of your common life.
Right. And I think we can make it work by actually bringing it into common life. And so MICA is a highly collaborative institution, and our faculty are very far-reaching in terms of their connections. So we have actually many programs that actually touch lives and different entities throughout the city. And again, TEDCO and MICA actually have collaborated on in some beautiful ways, as well. So just one example, for some years now, MICA and Johns Hopkins, we have embedded our faculty and students into a kind of year-long program with a Hopkins Extreme Materials Institute that brings together their biologists, physicists, really is the area where they do scientific innovation. And that has been a very fruitful collaboration, because what they have found is that by embedded, again, these associative and poetic minds who came in, who are not actually scientists by nature, who ask great questions, and then through the artistic and design thinking and pathway, reinterpret what they do, both sides end up getting new solutions and new ideas and new insights. So that's one example. The other example is social design. We have both a master's degree in social design and also a Center for Social Design that it's almost like a service action core for city government, for state departments, and also for different entities. So we have attacked problem from anywhere from food desert to HIV prevention to COVID vaccination, information to encourage vaccination, and to traffic safety. Because of all these different partnerships, MICA is actually out there in the city working with neighborhoods and working with companies and agencies. And with TEDCO, because MICA is I think we are still the only art schools in the country that has a upstart venture competition at the end of every single year, that we have raised fund, very generous support from the Redcliffe Foundation. We have $100,000 pool now for 7 or 8 years in a row, that our graduating students and the immediate graduating class can compete to start their creative businesses. So I know that TEDCO experts like your investment analysts have served as our judges and mentors with our students. So I think that through all this, I think we are trying to make art and design, the impact and the value felt through a wide spectrum of neighborhoods, people, and also organizations.
Well, that's a great segue to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, because you've mentioned it a couple of times in various ways about your diversity of your student population, but also how you think about serving. And you didn't, just so everyone understands, MICA is in Baltimore. It's in the heart of Baltimore, and so this isn't sitting in some suburb. It's in Baltimore. So all the stuff that Sammy's talked about, he's actively involved. So talk a little bit about kind of how you think about DEI, both as an organization and the impact that MICA is having.
Yeah, no, thank you. We have thought deeply about it. I arrived MICA in summer of 2014. And then in 2015, we launched an institutional-wide re-examination about, we call DEIG. So DEI, everyone knows, diversity, equity, inclusion. Yeah. We added globalization to it for a MICA specific reason, but also for, I think, for universal reason. The MICA specific reason is that we had an increasing number of international students. So we have to really think about how to include them into our imagination, but also you really cannot be contemporary relevant without thinking how your local context resonates and will have implication on a global scale. So because of that, for us, our term is DEIG. So after about 2 years of in community-wide re-examination, soul searching about DEIG, we adopted a institutional-wide DEIG mandate that actually is reshaping who we are. MICA, being 196-year-old, meant that while we have embraced DEIG, we also have own racist past, and we also have our own version of structural racism built in, over decades, and if not centuries, at MICA, and we have to actually confront that and acknowledge it first. And we did that in 2019. Actually, I actually issued a kind of apology for MICA's own racist past. And that was prompted also by a very powerful student project. And we just adopted the DEIG mandate with the student exhibitions that call out MICA's racist past. Was perfect time to do that kind of acknowledgement. And with that, we moving forward. So what we have done is that we are looking at the curriculum. And so we have actually built DEIG values into our institutional learning outcomes. And all the courses now have a requirement to build in DEIG content. We have trained all our faculty search committees to understand implicit bias. And as a result of that, over the last 4 to 5 years, our incoming faculty, it's very, very diverse. And also the senior cabinet of MICA is completely diverse now. We are over 50% people of color, and about gender-wise, we are 50-50, and the board has also increased its diversity almost like 2.5 to 3 folds. So I think without changing the leadership landscape of a place, and without setting policies and practice and training that structuralize that kind of dismantling of a racist structure, we don't go anywhere. But at the same time, so we're taking very, very serious at MICA, and even in our creative entrepreneurship, when I was very fortunate to work with a Redkit Foundation to create a center for creative entrepreneurship at MICA. But that center, because it's within the college, really benefits our students and our alumni. And I did not want that to become inadvertently a non-inclusive measure, because students were coming to MICA of a particular privileged group of people. So at the same time, I launched a initiative called the Baltimore Creatives Acceleration Network, or BCAN. You might have heard about BCAN. BCAN is actually, and that serves all creatives, especially Black and Brown creatives in Baltimore, to increase their creative entrepreneurship capacity and skills. And they don't need any affiliation with MICA. So we are doing both inward and outward work. And I know that TEDCO has been very mindful about your own DEI work, because again, the tech startup field, it's actually has a lot of social and economic inequities kind of built into it as well. And so that's another connection, I would say, between MICA and TEDCO, and between maybe perhaps you and me, is that we are very mindful of the history that we are facing, and we are very motivated, and we are very assertive in the efforts that we're using to try to address those inequities. And I'll just end by saying that while MICA has embraced the DEIG effort, it's a never-ending journey. I keep reminding people that just because we change our mission statement, we reset our vision statement, we have this mandate, it doesn't mean that we are there. It takes very long-term, tenacious efforts. If something that structural racism took 4 centuries to build, and it's not going to be dismantled, overnight. So I think it's really about building that into the culture, the structure, the leadership of the place, and then you just keep on doing that journey and doing what you can to change. But we are committed to that journey at MICA.
Yeah, and you are, and the word we use, and the word you didn't say, but you used all the words around it, is intentionality. Is the word I use. We have to be, there has to be an intentionality to what.
And tenacity, yes.
And tenacity, because this is, to your point, it's not a straight line. It's not going to happen overnight. And the other thing I'd say is you have to learn to take the small victories, because if you get caught up in the challenges, you miss the small things that happen. And so the one Black or brown kid that you can change, you got to take that one kid and not get overwhelmed by all the other challenges that the other Black and brown kids have. And
well said.
Yeah. I want to close with talking about, because you mentioned a couple of times, we're in the middle, I've been here 2 years here at TEDCO, and so I came in during the pandemic. And so I want to understand, because you've had an amazing journey, and you show me as one who's always a learner. You're continually, you're a lifelong learner. I get the sense that you.
Yeah.
And so
it's the only way to be.
I couldn't agree more. And so, what has Sammy, as Sammy, not as the president of MICA, Sammy kind of learned about himself through these last couple of years? But the other side of it is, what is Sammy taken from this as a leader, as MICA, that you got to continue to do, that you learned that you want to continue to do?
Yeah. No, thank you for asking that question. So I have to think about that more, but I would say off the top of my head, there are a few things that I think I've learned over the last, I think that will be quite transformative for myself, as well as the way that I continue to do my work. One is that I think it's really important in this time where there's so much upheaval and so much reinvention that's needed to be very clear about your core principles, because it's almost like you are being rocked from side to side, from things that you know it's coming, from things that are here, but also you're surprised by things that you don't even expect to be coming at you. And you always kind of, it's just a very turbulent time that we live in right now. So the only way to maintain your head above the shoulder, head above the water, rough water, and then
shoulders
also,
too.
shoulder as well, right? And be able to kind of go forward with integrity. And also when you're in the leadership position, your community is looking for you for stability. And so in an authentic way of centering yourself, knowing why you make certain kind of decisions, and having your own set of principles is really, really clear. So I would say over the last 2 years in a pandemic time, when people are so harmed by uncertainty, social injustice, and just sheer unwellness, which I'll speak in a second, it's not a happy time for people. And because of that, you cannot make decisions that satisfies everyone. So because of that, I would say that kind of just be sure of what centers you as a human being, as a leader, is really critical. That's number one. And number two is that I think the pandemic time really separated out, in a way, health and wellness in a very interesting way. Being physical healthy doesn't mean you're actually mentally well. And because we have the anxiety, the uncertainty. I'm someone who deal with uncertainty actually very comfortably, but I'm just made up that way. Most people are not. And because of that, we have to be, as leader, for myself, to maintain myself even in this time, I have to make sure that not only am I physically healthy, I have to actually be super mindful about my own mental wellness and spiritual wellness, so that I can be centered. And then in caring for a campus community, or caring for my loved ones in my life, I also have to kind of see them through different lens: the physical health and safety, and also the mental health. And especially in higher education, we have this astounding research showing that a third of the incoming first-year students into college are either moderately or severely anxious or depressed. We have never seen that wave of young people coming at us. At the same time, they're coming with incredible assets. They are so idealistic. They want to change the world. But we have to position the school in a different way to say, okay, aside from just teaching, we have to figure out how to keep them well so that they can succeed. So I would say lesson number 2 is that that differentiation of health and wellness now, that actually very, very critical. And I would say number 3 is that, the bigger lesson is that I'm saying the very obvious here, but I think it's worth saying. We cannot go back to where we were, and we don't want to go back to where we were before. It's almost like the pandemic is definitely a globally seismic event. The landscape has, after an earthquake, the landscape has changed. You cannot build the same house on the same ground because the ground is no longer the same shape. And at the same time, it's not a house we want to rebuild anyway, because it's not a house built for everyone. And so we have the opportunity to rethink, how do we kind of reimagine the future that we want to be, and use this almost like a devil gifts of a time to endure the hardship, but rebuild it for a better future. So I would say that's lesson number 3, is understand and the difficulties we're encountering, but really confront it very honestly, imaginatively, with a sense of again, equity, inclusion, and all that, and think what kind of future do we want, and then how do we fashion and bring as many people together as possible to rebuild a better future than looking back nostalgically to something actually we should not want anymore.
I love it. I love a house not built for everyone. I'm going to remember that one, Sam. A house that was not built for everyone. And you said it so well. As we close, and I love to pay you a compliment. I've gotten a chance to not only through this platform, but through my life, meet a lot of folks. And most of us like me are, we're either left brain or right brain people, but you show me that you're one who's got both the left and the right brain. And so
the middle, a big part in middle, missing big part. So that's why I'm always learning too.
So thank you for your time. Thank you for your leadership here in Baltimore and in Maryland and there at MICA. I really do appreciate all that you're doing to really have people rethink art. And I would ask folks you want to give your website so people can go chance to look at what's your website?
Yeah, MICA is full of amazing stories, and everything that I've said before, you can find really concrete examples on the website. So please do check it out. But Troy, thank you for your important work at TEDCO. I think we're all in it together, and you are such an amazing leader and leading an amazing organization. So looking forward to actually even further collaboration.
Absolutely. I look forward to the visit. So to the audience, thank you again. Please visit the MICA website, view the MICA story. I think it is an amazing story. A lot of people don't know about it. Again, this is Troy Stovall, the CEO of TEDCO. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing listening. Thank you for all the support. Continue to stay safe, sane, healthy, and blessed. Till next time.
Goodbye.